All right, there we go. It should be working now. Yeah, appreciate that. Having a lot of technical difficulties here, figuring out the stream stuff still. Thought I was live earlier, and I was like, what's going on? Why are there no comments? But yeah, I figured it out later. So yeah, I was thinking about we're going off script here. Can you guys hear me now? Let me know. There should be audio now. It looks like there is. Okay, great. I think the chat is a little bit delayed for me. So on this one, I was thinking about trying out a new format. So the idea is nothing strictly planned here. We're going to do it more as a AMA, or if you want to get my reaction on something, like whether it be like a Reddit post, an article or something you saw, a video, whatever it is, related to cybersecurity, of course, then yeah, we'll go ahead and do that. And in the meantime, while I'm waiting on some stuff to come in, we can take a look at some recent vulnerabilities and different things like that that are going on right now. So let's see. Did you guys see that article recently that someone was like, these researchers were saying that over 1 billion devices were hacked through like some chip or something through a backdoor, but it turned out that it wasn't a backdoor. I don't know if you guys saw that one. That one was kind of interesting. Let's see. So yeah, if any of you guys have any questions, just drop it in the chat. That'll be the easiest way. And we can address that. We can kind of go from there. Let me pull up Twitter as well. It's being a little bit slow for me at the moment. Let me try to refresh that. So here's an interesting one. This is a game hacking video, or not video, but article. Let me go ahead and share my screen on this while I'm waiting on questions to come in. There's a limit of words I see. We'll ask a question with a few parts. Yeah, sure. And while you're typing that up, let me just swap over to the streaming window here. Let me select the window. So here's a kind of interesting article. I haven't read this one yet myself, but it just came in today. Is anyone familiar with the game Neverwinter Nights? I've never played this, but I vaguely remember this. Isn't this like a very old franchise? 2002, Obsidian Entertainment. I guess a researcher was looking for vulnerabilities in the game, which is kind of interesting because usually you don't see too many actual vulnerabilities in games other than client-side stuff, like basically self-hacking stuff, but he was able to chain 2 vulnerabilities to obtain remote code execution in multiplayer mode. That sounds kind of crazy. But yeah, this game is like an RPG-based game. Makes sense if it's from Obsidian. Based on the rules of Dungeons and Dragons. Okay. Okay, it got a re-release in 2018 for all the platforms here. Let's see what this exploit was. Oh, that's kind of crazy. He's got like the character models pulled up and everything. So it looks like he was essentially reverse engineering the game, which the engine is not open source, but there is an open source implementation of it. That's kind of crazy. So he rebuilt the game server with debugging symbols and then set up multiple machines with VirtualBox. So yeah, this is one of the things you see a lot in like multiplayer game hacking is analyzing the traffic and seeing like what gets sent to the game servers. And so that's kind of where he started. And it has its own protocol. This is probably where the vulnerability comes into play. They're implementing their own protocol. There might be like a vulnerability in the protocol. Let's see. Data is encrypted. User logs in the game. We got a key exchange. So we got some cryptography stuff going on here. So here's like looking into like reverse engineering the packets. So there's a part in the packet, a byte in the packet that indicates a server admin message. Stream of bytes. Specified. So he's just reverse engineering so far the byte stream data that's coming in and essentially trying to identify what all the bits are. And so here's where the vulnerability comes into play. Auditing the handlers, 2 vulnerabilities. So there's a stack-based buffer overflow, which is kind of what I was wondering, because maybe there's like not a bounds check somewhere. Let's see. Okay, a message is sent when the server detects a conflict between the character created and a character that already exists in the save game. That's pretty interesting. So we got this pop-up screen here. A version of this character already exists in the save game. Which version would you like to use? And you can choose this one or the other. And so this message contains 2 serialized lists of integers that represent class and class level of saved character. And here's the handler pseudocode. Integers are copied. Let's take a look before he explains it. Let's take a look here. Fast call, which is the calling convention of Windows. And so here's the handler. Takes a pointer to this. And then a character. Initialize 8 bytes. 8 bytes. Read 8 bytes. And then this one is 32 for a class, and this one is 8. Let's see here. Below, you'll find the pseudocode. Integers are copied into fixed size array, class, and class level. There is no list size check. Yeah, so there's no actual check here anywhere. So kind of what I was saying earlier. You can craft a message that contains lists of more than 8 integers. Array class will overflow. However, there is a stack cookie and there is no local variable between the buffer and the stack cookie. Unexploitable without a stack cookie leak. So if you guys are familiar with stack canaries, that is essentially what they're talking about here. So the idea is that there's some value that is placed on the stack, and if it's overwritten, at the end it gets checked by a special register. I think in Windows, I think it might be the, I know in Linux it's the FS register. Maybe I think it's GS special register in Windows. But essentially if you buffer overflow, so if you overwrite the stuff, then it's going to overwrite the cookie. And when it does the check at the end, it's going to terminate the program because you overflowed the buffer. So that's how the stack canaries work. And the only way to bypass that is you have to have a leak somewhere where you can leak the memory of the program before your exploit so that you can read the cookie value. And then in your exploit, you put the cookie back. So even though you're overwriting the buffer, you put the cookie in there so that it passes the stack canary check, and then you can proceed with your buffer overflow. But in this case, it looks like there was no leak. that he found at least. But there's another vulnerability, apparently. Major and minor numbers must be set to 5 and 1 to reach the vulnerable method. This method will process a list of 10 indexes and values. Values can be written out of bounds in the array because the index is not checked. So yeah, a lot of this stuff is just, not validating the data. But yeah, let's get into the questions here. I know someone was passing it. And then looks like they found like maybe a bypass for ASLR and different stuff like that. So maybe there's some leaks that were found later. But yeah, that's pretty interesting. You don't see hacks in games too often like that, like buffer overflows and stuff. All right, let's take a look here. Let me make my screen bigger. Let's see if I can make this chat larger because I have a pretty small second monitor here. Let's see what the easiest way to do this would be. Yeah, that works. Okay, let's commence the AMA here. So first question from Andreas M. says, I'm currently working in a small IT team of 8 people in a 600-person government organization handling endpoint security, SIM monitoring, security incidents, and some server-related tasks. Okay. My cybersecurity skills are very basic. I don't have colleagues with cybersecurity skills to learn from. Yeah, I feel you there. Even when I was in cybersecurity early on, it was pretty hard to find colleagues to learn from. I have CCNA, VCP, DCV, BTL1, and I'm preparing for BTL2. Blue team level 1, blue team level 2. Okay. Though I find the course quite basic. I've never had a cybersecurity job interview before. Okay, wait, so you're in IT, right? Well, what I was saying is even when I was working in cybersecurity, it was hard to find colleagues to learn from. Usually there were like 1 or 2 on the team, even like at the first jobs I had and stuff. But the problem is a lot of those people are pretty busy, so you hate to bother them. I've never had a cybersecurity job interview before. What kind of questions would I expect in a blue team interview, especially when applying for a dedicated cybersecurity firm? Okay, what would help me is if you can specify which blue team role. But just to give you some general blue team questions that are going to come up a lot. Now, regardless of the role, there's going to be the general questions that are going to come up, things about networking, right? You're going to do pretty well on, I think, a lot of those because you have the IT background. But then there'll be general cybersecurity questions as well, like explain the CIA triad, difference between encryption, encoding, hashing. What else? Difference between TCP and UDP, explain the 3-way handshake. How does SSL, TLS work? Those general questions. But then when it gets to the more cybersecurity or to the more like blue team specific questions, depending on the role, they might ask you things like, what is this event ID? And then say some common event ID number. If you're doing like incident response or maybe even SOC analyst as well, they could ask you about different, various common event IDs. So you want to be tight on your event IDs for sure. They might ask you questions related to Splunk or Elastic or something like that. They might say like, how do you, if you have like a Linux server that's collecting logs, but you want to forward that to your Splunk server, how would you do that? Things like that. So for these types of questions, setting up a SIM environment will be a good project if you haven't done it already. And that will help you better answer those questions, play around with Splunk and different stuff like that. Though I'd imagine if you have like blue team level 1, blue team level 2, you're probably pretty solid there. So yeah, maybe tightening up on your event IDs and things like that is what I would recommend without knowing anything further. But we'll keep reading here because I know you type more. Let's see here. Also, which topics, skills, and hands-on tasks should I review or practice before the interview? Could you provide some concrete examples? I basically just did that. Cool. All right. And then L30 says, what is your thoughts on CPTS? Yeah, I think the CPTS is really good. I haven't taken it myself, but I've heard great things about it. If we just look at it here. I don't know why my Twitter's not loading. It's kind of weird. Let me see if I can share my screen on that. I don't think I am at the moment. No, I'm not. 1 second. So yeah, this is the certification he's referring to, certified penetration testing certification. Is that really? Wait, what is it? Is that? No, it's certified penetration testing specialist. Man, these acronyms are just so hard. There's so many of them, all these different certifications, right? And here's the thing, and this is a question that I had to address on my YouTube recently. Someone was saying like, you know what, let me just go to my YouTube. Let me just pull up the video for you guys. And I want to address this. I think this will be helpful to a lot of people, right? You see certs and stuff like this. This is a very good certification, by the way. But one point that I wanted to make, let me just grab the video first. And I think this will be helpful for a lot of people that are asking about certifications, right? A lot of people that are trying to get in the field, you guys probably want to know, like, what certs should you pursue, things like that. It's a pretty common question. Let me see if I can find the video real quick. I think it was a comment. Yeah, it was a comment on one of my shorts. Let's see here. Yeah, this one. Okay. So it was the one where I was talking about the OSCP and how I feel that the CPTS, I think in time is going to overtake it. Just because from everything I've seen, it just provides more value. And the way that they teach is more thorough. It's better. Personally, I'm not really a fan of the offensive security teaching style. And I think that the way Hack the Box teaches is a lot better for most people. Okay, so here was the comment. The comment was, you know what, let me just snap this. And let me share on this. We can look at this together. All right. Will it show that? I don't think it's showing that. Okay, hang on. Sorry, guys, still fleshing this out here. What I'm going to do is just pull up the video then. OSCP. I don't know what's going on. It's playing a random video. 1 second. Try this one more time. Okay, here's the video. I'm going to play it on this screen here. OSCP is dying in 2025. And this is kind of crazy for me to say because that's how I actually started my channel back when I was vlogging about my experience going for OSCP. So yeah, basically in this one, if you haven't seen it, I'm talking about how that I feel that the CPTS is overtaking the OSCP. Just because, like I said, I think it provides more value. And we got this comment here, which I think this is a common sentiment, so I wanted to address this. So he said the cyber industry is cooked, man. It's become get this cert, get that cert, know somebody. This cert is no longer good. Now you'll need to know need a different cert. Oh, you got that cert now. Now you'll need a degree. Nice degree, but it's not enough unless you know someone because now you look overqualified. To be honest, network engineering is looking better and better. LOL. Well, for one thing, the job market's tough for all of the roles, especially IT. IT is not that easy to get into at the moment. A lot of people are gunning for IT jobs as well. So I don't really necessarily think that those positions are easier to get right now. But here's the thing. And this was actually my reply to this. It's like, look, all certs are optional. This is what you need to understand is that all certifications are optional. And it's always been that way, and it always will be that way. I didn't have a single cert until I was at the senior level. Now, I had other things, but that's the point, right? You don't necessarily need a cert, but you need something. So as I say, for many people, I think it's worth it. I think it's worth it to get a certification, whether that's CPTS, OSCP, whatever it is, even if it's Security Plus or something. yeah, some of them will do more work for you than others, of course. But no one cert is going to get you the job, anyways. Like I say all the time, I'm talking to a lot of people that have the OSCP. Maybe there's some in the chat right now, I don't know, that have OSCP and are having trouble getting interviews. Really, the biggest thing is to couple that. That's just one component of your overall portfolio, is having the certification. But you got to couple that with other things, whatever that thing is for you. For some people, it's having military experience. And when you have military experience and you interview with an interviewer that also has military experience, you can, that's a selling point, right? Because they're more likely to help you out. You have opportunities available to you that civilians don't have. And that's why, when I mentor people, I always try to take that into account, because everyone is coming into this field from a different point of view. No one's journey is the same, right? And so that's the idea. So there's no cert that you necessarily have to have. There is no, a lot of people call OSCP the gatekeeper cert, maybe 10, 15 years ago, but not really anymore. It hasn't been like that for a long time. And even back when I got into cybersecurity, it was considered the gatekeeper certification. That's what people called it. But even still, I didn't have that. And guess what? I landed jobs that had that as a requirement, by the way. This is why I said this in a recent video, but never take these job requirements as requirements, because they're really just suggestions. Because there's been so many times where I was recommended for a job that I didn't even meet half the requirements, and they had OSCP on there and all the stuff, 10 years experience, 5 years experience. And then I land the job and I find out that, oh yeah, most people are like really new and like no one has OSCP on the team. Oh yeah, and they were looking for 5 years experience with a tool that's only been out for 3 years, right? And all these things are very common. So yeah, don't let that discourage you, is what I would say. And don't feel like you have to get some cert. You don't have to get any cert. It's just an optional thing that can help. But for a lot of people, it is worth it, right? Because you don't have to have a degree. You don't have to have a cert, but you need something. Whatever that something is for you. Maybe you have network experience. Maybe you have IT experience like Andreas, right? That's his something, right? Now, he could still pair that with certifications, and he has been. But yeah, you need something that's going to be the selling point, right? So that's the idea. But yeah, CPTS, I think, is pretty solid. I mean, if you look at it here, it's super thorough. They cover so many domains. It's going to take you a long time to go through the material, and in this case, you actually have to go through all the material. Oh, looks like you can't pull it up. You have to go through all of the material to be able to take the certification exam. You can't just take the exam. But here we go. Here's the path. So you have to do this pen tester job role path. So you got general pen testing, Nmap stuff, footprinting, information gathering, like web-based, vulnerability assessment, file transfers, shells and payloads, Metasploit, password attacks, common services, pivoting, Active Directory, proxies, brute forcing or fuzzing, web applications, and SQL injection, SQL stuff, XSS, a bunch of different web-based attacks. And then Linux and Windows privilege escalation, how to write reports, and attacking enterprise networks, probably like 80 and stuff like that, if I had to guess. So, yeah, this is going to take a lot of time to go through, but it's going to be very thorough. It's going to be very solid. I know that because I've talked to a lot of people that have went through and gotten the certification, and yeah, it seems pretty solid. If I was starting out today, if I was pretty early on and I wanted to go for like a really technical cert that's a little bit difficult, like on the OSCP level, I would go for this over OSCP 100%. Yeah, for sure. Am I sharing? Oh, I'm not sharing. I don't know what happened to my screen. Oh, it never ended up sharing. That's so weird. Yeah, my apologies, guys. My apologies. Trying to figure out. Still trying to figure out this streaming thing. and the issue is I need to get like a bigger second monitor because it's hard for me to look at the chat and stream at the same time. So another question from Gopal, looks like. Can you help me with the roadmap of LLM pen testing? I have 3 years experience in offensive security, but a bit blank about LLM pen testing. Okay. What I would recommend for LLM is there's a really good Researcher by the name of Johan It's what is it? Embrace the Red. That's his blog. Check out this blog. Would be my recommendation. He has a lot of really good research he's done on LLM attacks, mainly around ChatGPT and stuff, that I think would be definitely worth a read. So prompt injection, all kinds of different attacks, jailbreaking, everything like that. So I would start here and just read a bunch of these and get an understanding of the different bug classes that spring up in LLMs. And a lot of these are remediated now on a lot of the LLMs, like prompt injection mostly. A lot of the issues there are fixed from my understanding. But it is helpful to learn the history of it. And then you can look at some of the more modern stuff like should have jailbreaking, right? That's one of the big ones right now. I would look into jailbreaking when it comes to LLMs. There was a really good talk that recently was released on Black Hat. Maybe I can find that real quick and show you guys. See if I can find that. This was a really good talk that I saw recently. One second. Yeah, they recently released a bunch of Black Hat talks. They're pretty good. I mean, I'll just share this on this main screen, right? So check out some of these various talks here. Some really good ones. This one was kind of interesting. I didn't get to listen to the rest of it yet, but this has been a really big topic in pen testing recently, in security research, is CI/CD runners, self-hosted ones specifically, like the GitHub ones. Where was it? It was a recent one they released. Was it? Oh, was it this one? Maybe? Let me see. Oh, man. I don't think this was it. Anyhow, there was one recently. If you just look into jailbreaking, that's one of the big attacks at the moment. Yeah, I don't think this was the one. But yeah, that was one of the really big ones that people are exploiting in LLMs. So I would definitely take a look at that. And then there are some CTF sites and stuff centered around LLM stuff that's springing up. So search up those as well. Get some hands-on practice. Yeah, good question though. Perfect. Yeah, does anyone else have any questions they want me to address? Otherwise, let me see if I can pull up my Twitter account. I don't know if I can. Here we go. Let's take a look at some Twitter stuff. Some X. A lot of times, the accounts that I follow post pretty interesting stuff, at least in my opinion. Let's see what people are talking about. There was a really cool blog post that I came across recently from Itman. It's like a Windows cybersecurity researcher, of reinventing PowerShell in C and C++. I didn't get the chance to read the full article yet, but I read part of it, and it is pretty interesting. So the idea is that PowerShell, if you guys didn't know, PowerShell, this is not PowerShell, actually. This right here. That's I guess you guys can't see my screen. But if you click the Windows icon, you type PowerShell, and you see the little icon that comes up that says Windows PowerShell. Well, what if I told you that's not actually PowerShell? PowerShell is actually a DLL file that exists on your system. And it's not PowerShell.exe. So you can actually execute PowerShell scripts without PowerShell.exe if you use the DLL. And here's the idea is that even though PowerShell has a lot of nice features and stuff, there's also a lot of security around it nowadays, like AMSI and constrained language mode and all these other logging capabilities and stuff. And so his idea is he wants to instantiate full-blown PowerShell console using only native code, which would allow, you know, him to bypass those protections, right? And there was a, where was it? There was a tool that he mentions that would bypass it. Is it this one? Executable executes a full language mode PowerShell session even when constrained mode is enabled. So constrained mode is, you can think of it as like a jailed bash shell, essentially. If you guys ever like got a reverse shell and it was like a jail shell, it was like restricted RSH or whatever. You SSH into a server and it was like restricted shell. It's kind of like that, but for PowerShell. You can whitelist so that users can only run certain PowerShell commandlets. But this tool here, even if you're in constrained language mode, it will rebuild the executable to give you access to like all of the commandlets and stuff to break out of the constrained language mode, essentially. And so a lot of these tools and stuff, they relied on like older versions of PowerShell, because as PowerShell got newer and more mature, they added all this logging and stuff to it. But you used to be able to just still use the old version because Windows likes to be backwards compatible with a lot of stuff. That's the whole thing with Windows. It's backwards compatibility. But even now, PowerShell version 2 is starting to become unavailable. So that's breaking some of the offensive tooling and stuff like that. So this was a tool to kind of address that using .NET Reflection, I think. But basically, that's where he got his inspiration for this project. So it uses the method Microsoft PowerShell console shell start to create an actual PowerShell console rather than emulating it like some other tools do. So you still get like the autocomplete and the Control-C out of stuff. And so here's the interesting, like this will help explain a lot of this stuff to you when he's talking about native code and stuff. So native code would be like, so if you write a program in C or C++, you're actually writing native code that gets translated directly into machine code. So the ones and zeros. If you use like a .NET application, you're going to write it in some intermediate assembly language, like, or you're going to write in some intermediate language, like C# or something like that. And then C# is going to basically translate it to bytecode that's going to run in the CLR, the Common Language Runtime. It's going to be ran by a just-in-time compiler that's going to translate that into native code. And then that native code is what gets translated to the machine code, the ones and zeros. So there's this intermediary step here. And what you want to do, if you want to fly under the radar, it's easier to do it with the native code because you don't have all this stuff here where they could put all these security mechanisms in place. It's a little bit harder for them to stop the native. I mean, obviously there's still plenty of methods, plenty of ways they can, but it is more evasive in general. Let's see here. Yeah, but keep the questions coming if anyone has any. Or if, like I said, if anyone has like a recommendation for me, you want me to react to some video, some Reddit post or something like that. In fact, we can go on Reddit and see if there's anything interesting. You know, I don't ever really browse Reddit, cybersecurity Reddit, to be honest. I don't even know. Where is it? What are some good Reddits, chat? Let me know. What are some good cybersecurity Reddit channels? I bet there's some good stuff in there. What do you guys look at on the cybersecurity side, on the pen testing side, or whatever? Maybe there's like a pen testing subreddit, isn't there? There is. Here's a good one. Let's take a look at this. Make sure you guys can see that. Yep. CTFs relative to real life pen testing / hacking. So I had a post to ask if real life pen testing and hacking is hard, especially compared to CTFs. So I wanted to ask in this post, how hard is it compared to CTF levels? Like, is an easy CTF like, man, this guy says like a lot. It's hard for me to understand what he's asking. Like, is an easy CTF like in real life would be you're going to hack into your aunt's B&B old computer system that hasn't been updated in who knows how long, maybe like 15 years ago. Is it medium? Okay, well, let's first address that. You know what? Actually, first let's read this and let's just observe what other people are saying. So medium CTF level, like hacking into your cousin's home network computers that someone set up 5 years ago, but haven't done anything to update it since. I have no idea, by the way. Okay, so it sounds like this guy hasn't really done any CTFs. I'm working my way through Try Hack Me, got through all the easy ones, and I'm trying easy CTFs, and it's still hard. Yeah, okay. I think everyone in the chat's familiar with this dilemma, right? Like, I think most people in the chat, you know, actually put a 1 in the chat if you've done CTFs before. I don't know where the chat is at with this stuff. We had a guy saying he has all these certs and stuff. We had another guy talking about LLM pen testing. I think you guys have done a lot of CTFs, but I don't know. I don't know what the level of the chat is. So put a 1 in the chat if you've done some CTFs, just so I can get an idea here. It looks like we got a few people on the call right now, or on the video. Okay, it looks like L30 has. Yep, Arun has as well. Yeah, maybe this wasn't the most interesting post. Yeah, they're just going to tell the guy that, yeah, it can be realistic sometimes. Okay, this guy says they do not translate in any way. They're only learning tools and basics for security. I wouldn't agree with that. Some of them translate. Like, okay, I will say this. I think a lot of people that are not in pen testing, people that have just like practiced this stuff, done it as a hobby, but they haven't actually worked as a pen tester, they will have a tendency to call things CTF-like that are actually not very CTF-like. So for example, if you ever seen like the whole like brute force and the password is summer 2025 exclamation point or whatever. Like a lot of people that were not in pen testing, they would say that's CTF like, but it's actually not. That's actually a very common password is the either the month or the season, the year, and like an exclamation point. A lot of people, when you tell people they have to put a special character in their password. Now keep in mind, you guys are studying cybersecurity. you guys are studying cybersecurity. You got to understand that most people, when you tell them to put a special character in their password, you know what they type? What do you guys think? What do they type? See how well you know the general public, right? What do they type when you tell someone, hey, you got to put a special character in your password? They say okay, and they type a certain key. What do they type? They usually type the exclamation point, right? They just put an exclamation point at the end. Let me tell you, it's like being in the world of cybersecurity and surrounding yourself with tech people all the time. Yeah, or at a lot of times just the exclamation point. But I mean, here's the thing: it's like when you are surrounded by tech people all the time, you think that people think a certain way, but you realize that like when it comes to passwords, the amount of girls that I've talked to that literally just had Google Docs with all their passwords, and their passwords are just like their dog's name and like the year or something. And it's like their password for like their like social media account and stuff like that. It's like, it's kind of crazy. It's really eye-opening when you hear from people that are not in this space, It's a pretty common thing. But it definitely, yeah, some of these translate very well. For example, I don't know if any of you guys ever did, like when you can access a Tomcat manager console and you'd go and you look up Tomcat default username password. You just type that into Google, right? And you get some default credentials and you just put that in, and then you're logged into the manager console, and then you deploy a malicious war file. You can use like MSF Venom or something, or you could actually probably easier on a real engagement to just get a JSP web shell, package that into a war file, just upload it to the server, and then access the web shell, and now you have remote code execution on the server. Has anyone done that CTF? Put a 2 in the chat if you've done a CTF like that, where it's, let's say you get access to a Tomcat Manager console, and then you deploy like a malicious war file, and you get initial access to the server that way. Has anyone done that? Very, very basic. Very basic. Now, my point with that is that a lot of people that are not in the field would probably look at that and say, that's not very realistic, right? But I've done that multiple times on real engagements. On real engagements at like Fortune 500 companies and stuff. So yeah, this stuff exists, guys. So saying they don't translate in any way, and even if they don't verbatim translate, a lot of stuff does. A lot of the stuff that you will do in these CTFs, I would say, if anything, the reason that they wouldn't translate is because they're harder than real life engagements. Now, here's the thing. Real life engagements are hard in a different way. What would make a real life engagement hard is the scoping of it. So you just have like a lot more stuff to look at generally. Like if you are pen testing a web app, let's say, that web app might be like, 50 pages, 100 different pages with like 100 parameters, like 10 parameters per page or something crazy, right? Whereas on a CTF, it's probably going to be a pretty small site, and most of it's going to be third-party code, because the box creator is not going to sit there and create like 50 web pages custom with like a bunch of custom fields. Whereas a company absolutely will have a custom website for their employees or their, or whatever, right? Or for their customers. They'll absolutely have a team of developers creating a custom website. And that custom website is where the vulnerabilities can be, right? Because in third party, it's pretty self-explanatory whether if there's a vulnerability in that or not. You can just look it up. You can just see, hey, is there any CVE on this version of Drupal or WordPress or whatever, right? And you can see if someone found a vulnerability or not. Whereas if it's custom code, there is no database you can check against that. You got to find the vulnerability yourself, right? And so that would make it harder. I would say specifically on the web side of the house is where things get more complex. Maybe you could say in the networking side too, if you're doing an internal engagement that's real world, maybe you have 100 IPs or something. Could happen. But I mean, how much harder does that really make it? Now you have 100 times the chance that you can find a vulnerability. If you think about it, in a certain sense, you have like 100% or 100 times the chance of finding something compared to a CTF, right? You got one box. I'm not a pen tester yet, but I would think the hard part would be getting out of the CTF mindset. That is true. That's a good point, L30. Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. That is true. There is a certain mindset shift as well when it comes to real world versus CTFs, where you're going to find something versus unknown on a real engagement. That's part of it. Where I was going with it was this. Another component of the CTF mindset is that a lot of people that just do CTFs, part of their CTF mindset is being really fixated on code execution. That's one of the things you have to break out of when you go from CTFs to real world. And maybe, you know what? Would you guys be interested in me making a video on that at some point of like how to go from CTFs to real world as a pen tester? I can make that. I think it would be pretty valuable for people. But one of the shifts that you need to make is in your mindset of, instead of just looking for code execution, to train yourself to look for all vulnerabilities, even if they don't necessarily lead to code execution. Because here's the thing. A lot of it is pretty contextual based on what does the company sell? What do they value, right? So as an example, when I work for General Motors, the car company, they really cared about like their schematics and stuff like that, right? Their data of like their blueprints on their new cars and stuff like that. And if a attacker went in and exfiltrated that data and sold it to other car companies or something, then that would be something they'd be very concerned about. It'd be a huge damage to them as a business. So that's an example of something that has nothing to do with remote code execution. Well, I mean, it could, right? They could use that to pivot around other environments. But let's just say they're able to access that server somehow. And from there, exfiltrating that data might not even require code execution. Maybe they get like a path traversal vulnerability, right? Where they can read arbitrary files on the file system and they just read off those files and they exfiltrate them. And they don't even need code execution. If you're in the CTF mindset, you're only thinking about code execution because it's like, oh, you're so in the habit of, get code execution, then privilege escalate and get root, get admin. Same thing on the Active Directory side. A lot of people are so fixated on domain admin. As a red teamer, I had to learn that a lot of times it's better if you don't even go for domain admin. You can be more stealthy, right? Sometimes you need it. Sometimes it's worth it. But sometimes it's not the number one priority, especially when you're emulating an adversary. So that's the thing as well. But a lot of it kind of depends on the company, what they value and stuff like that. Would love to hear your point of view. Fine. Oh, yeah. That's what I was addressing. But that's true too. Like L30 brings up, there's a difference when you're going to find something versus the unknown on a real engagement. But here's the thing. You can always find something. Now, there are times where pen testers don't find anything on an assessment. It's very, very rare. I think it happened to me once or twice in my career. In my entire career. But it does happen. There's nothing wrong with that. Usually you can at least find a lower informational finding. So like, for example, if you're doing a web pen test, you could probably at least report something on the insecure headers and stuff like that, right? If you guys read the email that I sent out recently, definitely jump on the email list if you're not on there already. But I shared a post from one of my members that recently got a pen testing job about a year ago. And he was talking about how he felt like an imposter on his web pen test because he's like, man, all I have is the insecure headers. I don't have anything. And he was about to give up, but he kept going and he found some interesting functionality with I think it was, what was the component of it? Oh, a password reset functionality on the site. And he was tinkering around with that a little bit. And he found out that even though on the website, certain fields were grayed out with changing the password of like the administrator account, if you sent the request manually through Burp Suite, or basically not using the front-end UI, you could actually modify the parameters and reset the email of any user. So he reset the password of any user if you know their email. So he just did some OSINT on who the admins were at the company, and he put in one of the admins' email addresses because he knew the structure of the accounts in that company. He knew his like first name dot last name at company.com, right? And so he did that and he was able to reset the password of one of the admin accounts and then log into the site as the administrator, right? So that's an example of, sometimes you don't find anything. Sometimes you think that you're not going to find anything. You might feel like an imposter, but you might be just around the corner from finding having a lot of success, finding a really big vulnerability, right? So that's one such example there. And it could be such a thin margin, right? If he could have just stopped there. He was really close to quitting, right? He could have just quit there and then he would have felt like a failure or whatever. But just that one little extra step and boom, now he found this like huge thing, right? And that's the nature of the game as well. It's it's hard, right? But that's what makes it so rewarding when you do find the cool stuff. But yeah, you don't need to be finding crazy stuff all the time. In fact, if you're working for an internal pen test team, one of the cases will be like you might be pen testing a web application that's been tested like hundreds of times by other testers. And the change they added to the site might be very, very minuscule. And it might be so picked through that there's nothing to find. Like you got to understand, some of these web apps have been pen tested like over 100 times with each iteration. They just need to do it as part of compliance. So this thing has been tested and tested and tested. So all the like big vulnerabilities for the most part are probably already found, not only by other pen testers on your team, but also by a bug bounty program. Like if it's an internet facing site, let's say it's on their main site or whatever. Well, that thing's probably been tested like over 100 times and has bug bounty hunters testing it constantly. So when they turn you loose on the next pen test, unless they, add some groundbreaking functionality, super custom or whatever, you might not find much of anything interesting. Most pen tests, you don't find like too much interesting stuff. Now, if you're testing something that's being tested for the first time, then you can have fun. And let me tell you, a lot of times that's going to be easier than any CTF that you've ever done. So I don't know. Do you want to call that hard? I don't know, chat. Would you call that hard, right? Let's say that you are pen testing a website. Let me give you a pretty common case. You're testing a website that's not particularly large. Like maybe there's like 5 web pages on the website. And there's a few buttons and different stuff on the site, but there's really not that much functionality. And it's been tested like 100 times. And like L30 was saying, maybe there's nothing really to find on it. Maybe there is, maybe there's not. We don't know, right? It's not a CTF. Would you call that hard? Or would you call that easy? I personally would call it easy. Maybe some people would call it hard. But the reason that I would call it easy is if there's not really anything interesting to find, then you're doing your job as intended as long as you're testing the parameters and, verifying everything, right? So I would consider that pretty easy. And that's a very common case on pen tests for like if you're an internal pen tester. And then the other case, like I said, the other case is a web app or maybe if you're doing an internal, like a network that's never been tested before. Those are a ton of fun. You're going to find so much stuff, but that's also really easy because it's never really been tested before. There's bugs like everywhere. There's vulnerabilities everywhere. You're probably going to have like admin on multiple servers within like an hour or two, especially if you do CTFs. CTFs are so much harder. In both of these cases, I would argue that CTFs are a lot harder than real world. I really do believe that. And I've had coworkers that cannot, like, they could not solve these CTFs half as well as like probably all of you guys in my chat right now. And they're doing the job and they're staying at the company and the manager says they're doing a great job. So that's the thing you guys got to realize. I think that a lot of people, and it's easy to think this way as outside people looking in, right? Because you're doing everything in your power to get a job in cybersecurity, right? You're putting in all this time, doing all these CTFs on Hack the Box, grinding out like Try Hack Me, CPTS, all this stuff, right? And you're looking at people that are in the field and you're like, man, if I'm doing all this and I still can't get an interview, the people that are in cybersecurity, they must be ultra elite. But really, nothing can be farther from the truth. And I know that like you probably don't want to believe that. You probably think I'm like just saying that or whatever. But no, like once you guys get in the field, look around and then message me back. Let me know what you guys think. Because the reality is that like most people in the field, they're not that technical. Cybersecurity is really huge. It's hard to get in. That's the challenge. And honestly, that's why I mentor people, because that is the hardest part, is getting into the field. But once you get into the field, it's just a 9-to-5 job. And most people that work 9-to-5 jobs are like pretty average intelligence. When you look on Reddit, right? Maybe not Reddit. Reddit's a bad example. I don't think they're very good at pen testing on Reddit. But if you look on like Twitter or something, you look at these like blog posts, right? Like this guy, right? We're going over this guy. Like this guy is like a top 1%, right? This is like a top 1% researcher. Most people are not doing this. Most people are not finding 0 days. Most people are not like, honestly, most people are not solving like most of the boxes on Hack the Box, right? Most people, maybe they do 1 or 2 easy boxes here or there. But most of the people in the field, I can't tell you how few people that I knew, like out of my coworkers, that did Hack the Box. The one exception to that was when I became a senior in the field and everyone was like a senior around me. A lot of those people were actually doing them. Even still, a lot of them weren't. But they were doing, most of them were actually doing cybersecurity stuff outside of work. But up until that point, like most jobs I worked at, people were not really like doing CTFs and all this stuff. A lot of people are very beginner in the field. But like I said earlier, you don't have to have all these certs and all this stuff. You need something though. That's the point. You do need something that can help you stand out. Now, for a lot of the people that are pretty incompetent, that something for them was like their degree and their referrals and knowing the right people. And yeah, like, and I think like, yeah, if you want to just like not learn anything and hope that you can sneak into the field, then yeah, it's about who you know, not what you know and all this stuff, right? Yeah. But if you actually develop yourself from a technical standpoint, And, you really optimize yourself for getting into the field by, improving yourself on multiple fronts, and you have multiple things that can set yourself apart. You can, you can get into the field. But getting in is the tricky part. That is the hard part. But it's not that everyone in the field are so elite and all this stuff. I think a lot of people think that. It's just not true. Let's see what else you guys are saying here. Not CTF, but course. I'm not sure what you're saying, Arun, if you can clarify that. I'm not a pen tester yet, but I think the hard part would be getting out of the CTF mindset. Oh yeah, well, I already read that, my bad. Also, I don't know if you've seen, but I did ask a question. If you scroll up, okay, yeah, I probably lost it. Let's see. Okay, yeah, let's see. I have a question, send it in parts. I'm sitting for the OSCP Plus on April 4th for my second attempt. Do you have any recommendations? You know what? Let's look at it. I think OSCP keeps changing, right? So before I tell you anything, let's pull this up. Let's see what they're saying about this exam currently. I haven't read it in a little bit. Jesus Christ, it's $1,700 now. Is this for 3 months or what? I thought they retired the monthly. I thought you have to buy like the year. I guess you can just get this one, right? Okay, you can still buy the 90 days. That's right. You can only buy either 90 days or the 1 year thing, right? I think that's how it works. All right, let's take a look at this because I wanna scan through this before I say anything. 2 exam attempts. Wait, are you serious? If you buy, you can buy the exam. But wait a minute. Wait, this is just for the standalone exam? This doesn't give you any materials? Are you serious? Wait, when you used to buy the 90 days and you used to pay, I think, like $1,500, it used to come with all the materials and like the exam attempts. Now it's $1,700 just for the exam attempt, nothing else. Are you serious? And and by the way, it's only valid for 3 years. That is such BS. Jesus, are you kidding me? Wait, so how do you get access to the course material now? Is it you have to buy the 1 year, I guess? Let's click buy harder. Buy harder, 1 learner, fewer than 10. Yeah, because look, they're really optimizing for companies now, Individuals are kind of getting priced out, unfortunately. Let's see. Let's click buy harder. They're not even going to show me. I got to fill out. I got to give away like my personal information over to them before they even tell me. Let's see here. Okay, yeah, here we go. This is what I was looking for. Wait, this is kind of confusing because there's this course plus cert exam bundle for $1,700, but then over here was telling me $1,700 and you don't even get course materials. So it's kind of confusing. Interesting. I guess they're different packages. I don't know why you wouldn't just get this one. Wow, even their Sec 100 security essentials for $900. I actually used to have access to everything because through my employer I had Learn Unlimited. And when I went through, I skimmed through this and it was just a PDF basically. It was an online PDF. I know people get triggered now when I call it a PDF. They're like, it's not a PDF anymore. I'm like, okay, fine. I'll hand it to you. The PDF is now on a website. Wow, what a big improvement. Now, instead of scrolling through a PDF, you got to view it on a website and click the next button. Let's see. But yeah, let's see if I can get some info on the exam. Let's see, what are the exam details, right? What are they covering? OSCP Plus exam details. Yeah, let's see what's going on here. Newly updated. Okay, yep, same time limit and proctored, yes. This is up to date, right? 4 months ago? I hope that's the current one. I mean, it's on their website, so I'm going to have to assume that it is. But let's see here. Exam structure. 3 standalone machines. 1 Active Directory set, 3 machines, 40 points. Okay, yep. And I understand they did away with the extra credit. I'm pretty sure, right? Possible scenarios to pass the exam. is going to be, so yeah, you need 70 points to pass. So 40 points plus 3 local flags, or 2 and 1 proof, 3 and 2. Oh, you can get partial points on AD now. You used to not be able to. It used to be 40 or nothing. So they did change that. Okay, that's nice. That's nice. Yeah, it used to be an all or nothing. It was like a make it or break it. Okay, so I mean, it is like the same. It's pretty similar aside from that change. Is what it's looking like to me. Just wanted to make sure there weren't any groundbreaking changes that I wasn't aware of. Oh yeah, they don't let you use LLMs. All right, let's see here. $50 more for the course bundle. I'm unsure I bought it before the changes. Okay. All right. So let me get to your question now. So you're asking me, you're about to take your exam. Any recommendations? I found a course to be really lacking. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I found it to be very lacking as well, to be honest with you. A lot of the stuff, the tools and techniques that I used on like AD, for example, were things that I learned outside of their PDF document. Like one thing that I can't stand, I don't know if they still do this. I'm sure it's the same material, just uploaded on their website. But their teaching style, when it was the PDF, and even when they put it on the website, honestly, because I was around for that a little bit. But their teaching style was essentially like, hey, let me build out this proof, and you spend all this time doing like following along with all their steps, and you spend like 30 minutes, at least 30 minutes to an hour just following their steps. And then they're like, oh yeah, and by the way, it doesn't work. And they're like, this is why it doesn't work. And then they like lead you down another rabbit hole, and they're like, and this doesn't work either. And then like after like 2 hours, they like show you the right way to do it. It's just so annoying. It is so irritating. I cannot stand that way of learning. And I don't know, it's just very dry, and yeah, I just didn't like it. I just didn't resonate with it. And a lot of people that I talked to have also said similar stuff. You're studying for PEH. I'm not sure which one that is from TCM. And a CPTS course. Yeah, I would just pick one of them and focus on that. I wouldn't spread yourself too thin. Not to say that you can't get all of those, which honestly, I don't know what the value is of getting all of those. What I tell people in general is get 1 cert, 2 at max. Anything beyond that is, I mean, you can if you want, but it's a little bit overkill. You'd be better served just trying to get actual experience, or doing projects and stuff. But if you're going to go for all 3 of those, I would focus on 1 at a time, because like OSCP is something you need to study for sure. But yeah, my general recommendation would essentially be that is if you want to get OSCP and that's coming up in a month, I would, I mean, I guess it is nice. There's some crossover with CPTS and what they're teaching you, but here's the thing. OSCP exam boxes and OSCP boxes are very, very hyper specific, hyper unique. And what I mean by that is Hack the Box and stuff, as great as the training is, doesn't really prepare you for OSCP machines because they're testing you on different things. So with Hack the Box, what it's testing is your ability to research. They're not trying to lead you down rabbit holes. They're not really testing your enumeration. Typically on a Hack the Box machine, you only have like 2 open ports. Usually it's just like 22 and 80. And if it's not 80, it's just a web server running on port 3000 or some higher port number, right? And it's usually very clear. The scope is small. You'll probably go on a website and there's only like 1 page and it's like, hey, this is the functionality you need to exploit. But exploiting it is the hard part. You have to do a bunch of research. You have to dig into a bunch of stuff. It's probably some obscure technology or configuration you have never seen before. And they know that. They're counting on that. And they want to test, can you do the research and figure it out? That is what Hack the Box is testing you on, at least in their platform. OSCP is doing very much the opposite of that. They're not really testing you on that. They're testing you on your methodology. So they're going to throw like 20 open ports at you, and they're going to throw all these rabbit holes your way, and they want to test your methodology and your enumeration. They want to see if you're under a tight time constraint and you have to look into all this stuff, how efficient is your methodology and your enumeration. So all that is to say, if you want to get OSCP, but you're just doing hack the box machines, it's not really the best prep for it. Even if you do the TJ null list or whatever, it doesn't matter. Those machines are quite a lot different than OSCP, even the TJ null list for the most part. I don't know if people still use that, but I know they did back in the day. I didn't really find it particularly useful. But yeah, I would recommend if you want OSCP, then just really focus in, study for that, and do boxes either a part of the OSCP lab or Proving Grounds. Those are going to be the most similar machines you can do. And then after you get that cert, then you can shift focus into PEH or CPTS or whatever. Doing Proving Grounds? Okay, yeah, that sounds good then. Yeah. I mean, hey, if you really are not that excited about the exam, I mean, it kind of sucks now, right? You spent all that money. You might feel like, okay, you have to finish it out, right? Like, give it your best effort, right? But if you fail again, I mean, you could just go for a CPTS or something like that. Like I said, I think CPTS is going to overtake OSCP anyways. And there's so much overlap between the two. What is the value of having both of them? I mean, there's value, but it's definitely a diminishing return, I would think. Yeah, if you're enjoying studying for the other ones more, I'll say, hey, like really focus this month. Study for the OSCP. I don't care if you don't want to do it. Study for it. Focus on it. Give it your best effort. And then if you don't pass it even after that, then okay, fine. Do another cert that you're more motivated to do. Yeah, CRTO looks cool. I wanna explore that one as well at some point. I already have PMPT, PJPT. I was just using those. Yeah, there you go. I mean, if you already have those, man, yeah, I would say that I don't know what your project portfolio looks like, but yeah, you probably want to build those out and just start applying to jobs, honestly. Currently an internal and external network penetration tester. What areas do you think I should focus on for skills relevant in the coming years? Cloud pen testing, WAPT, etc. Okay, so you're focused on network pen tests. I mean, I would definitely focus on cloud if you're doing stuff on the network side, because probably you are interfacing with some hybrid joined domains and stuff like that. I would focus specifically on Azure first. You can then learn like AWS and GCP. I would first start on Azure just because a lot of these Active Directory domains, which you said you're doing internal, so I mean, I'm sure they're all domain joined and stuff like that. A lot of those are going to be hybrid joined into the cloud, maybe through like ADFS or through PHS, password hash synchronization. So I would get familiar with Azure and Entra ID specifically, and I would learn how hybrid joined works and how you can pivot from internal to the cloud and the other way around. Yeah, I would focus on that. I think that'd be pretty relevant in that space. WAPT, is that wireless? Is that wireless, I think? Yes to hybrid, currently encountering Azure more than AWS. Yeah, exactly. So that's why I'm saying like you should focus on Azure first, and then you would focus on AWS after that. So yeah, that would be my recommendation. Actually, funny enough, I'm starting to build. I'm starting to build or make some videos on Azure pen testing and stuff. So stay tuned on the channel. Actually, just today I recorded a video showing how to set up an Azure lab environment with some misconfiguration scripts to set up a lab. And in upcoming videos, I'll show like some pen testing strategies, enumeration, different stuff I would look at on cloud pen test based on Azure. So we'll be diving into that as like a new series pretty soon. So web app pen testing. Oh, web app. Okay, yeah, because you're doing internals, right? So yeah, focus on web app. Web app's not going anywhere. You know, websites are going to be around. It's going to be relevant in the coming years for sure. Yeah, I would say that your initial instinct was correct. Gotcha. Yeah, I gotcha. Yeah, that's what I would recommend for sure. Yeah, so yeah, I'm pretty much gonna end the stream here. Didn't want to go too long with this one here, but yeah, this is a good Q&A, and yeah, maybe do it again in the future if there's demand for it. And yeah, it's kind of cool to have like a more chill stream, hang out, react to stuff, answer your questions. And I will be streaming again on, let's see, today is Monday. I'll be back again on Thursday. And that one for sure, we're going to be doing more intermediate level CTF, whatever. So my plan probably going forward is like 2 CTF streams a week, and maybe one of these if there's interest in it. But yeah, I'll see you guys again on Thursday. All right, guys, see ya. CTF versus real world. Okay, yeah, I'm gonna put that down right now on my video ideas spreadsheet, so I can create that one pretty soon for you guys. Yeah, I think that would be a pretty cool one to make as well. All right, guys, see ya.